Welcome to Black History Monday, the show that takes you on a journey through Black history to expose our contributions, as well as many racial massacres hidden from history. So sit back, free your mind, and follow me on this journey. New York City draft riots. A major historical event that shaped New York is not much spoken about in present-day America. In July 1863, about 1,200 to 1,500 men, mostly Irish dock workers, rioted against the Civil War draft in New York City in a 5-day upheaval targeting black workers and citizens. The number of fatalities is unclear, but reports fluctuate between 100 to over 1,000. It remains the most significant insurrection by civilians in American history. The riot occurred when the anger of working-class New Yorkers over a new federal draft law during the Civil War sparked 5 days of some of the bloodiest and most destructive rioting in U.S. history. Once again, African Americans were often the target of the rioters' violence. As it is, New York City had not welcomed the onset of the Civil War, as it meant losing the South as a trading partner. Cotton was an extremely valuable product for New York's merchants. Before the Civil War, cotton represented 40% of all the goods shipped out of the city's port. So, a quick side note. We must all understand and acknowledge that slavery, or what is more accurately known as centuries of free labor which resulted in the massive wealth of the country and various white families, was welcomed across the entire country, including those so-called northern states. Now, it is crucial to understand the contrast here. This fear of others taking economic advantage to the detriment of true citizens recurs throughout history, from Nazi Germany to the ICE raids. Remember, number 45 said that illegal immigrants compete directly against vulnerable American workers during his election campaign. The pro-slavery politicians and journalists of the mid-1800s used this fear and economic instability to their advantage and were primarily responsible for promoting the rhetoric. Lincoln's government passed a strict new conscription law which made all male citizens between 20 and 35 and all unmarried men between 35 and 45 subject to military duty. The law was passed because the government was facing a dire shortage of military manpower in early 1863. Conscription is the mandatory enlistment in a country's armed forces and is sometimes referred to as the draft. There were 2 ways out of this conscription: hire a substitute or pay $300 to the government, which is roughly $5,800 today. At the time, that sum was the yearly salary for the average American worker, making avoiding the draft impossible for all but the wealthiest of men. To make unfair matters worse, African Americans were exempt from the draft as they were not considered citizens. For the first 24 hours after the lottery, the city remained suspiciously quiet, but rioting began early on the morning of Monday, July 13. Thousands of white workers, mainly Irish and Irish Americans, started by attacking military and government buildings and became violent only toward people who tried to stop them, including the insufficient numbers of police officers and soldiers the city's leaders initially mustered to stop them. By that afternoon, however, they had moved on to target black citizens, homes, and businesses. Let's stop here for a minute. This, once again, is just a display of the hatred that white people of that era had, and some white people today continue to have for black people. In this incident, the issue is clearly with a law the government passed, but they took out their hatred and aggression on black people. In one horrific example, a mob of several thousand people, some armed with clubs and bats, stormed the Colored Orphan Asylum on Fifth Avenue near 42nd Street, a four-story building housing more than 200 children. They took bedding, food, clothing, and other goods and set fire to the orphanage. Luckily, they didn't harm the children, who were forced to go to one of the city's almshouses. But do you think those children led normal lives after such a traumatic experience? Rioters also turned their rage and hatred against white abolitionists and white women who were married to black men. The whites who were long opposed to working alongside blacks used this riot as an opportunity to destroy any businesses that catered to black workers. By far, the worst violence was reserved for African American men, many who were lynched or beaten to death with shocking brutality. In all, the published death toll of the New York City draft riots was 119 people, though estimates of the actual number of people killed reach as high as 1,200. President Abraham Lincoln was forced to send 4,000 Union troops to stop the violence sweeping across the city. With the arrival of the troops, including some who had fought at Gettysburg, the violence ended on July 16th. After the riots, the black population in New York diminished by 20%. By 1860, fear of the outsider was turned on its head and used to cast votes against Abraham Lincoln and in support of local politicians who supported slavery. It is incredible to me how some Americans rewrite history to suit their narrative. We're told never to forget 9/11. We are constantly reminded of the Holocaust. The Japanese were paid reparations after the country forced them to live in internment camps during World War II. White women have forgotten that the country thought so little of them that they didn't get the right to vote until 1920, which was after black men got the right in 1870. Yet, so many white women still vote for the same racist and sexist ideology every time they go to the ballot box to put somebody in office who really doesn't think highly of them. If you have bothered to pay attention to any of my Black History Monday series, you will see that the hate for people of color has maintained since the days of slavery. If you are still a part of the group that says white privilege doesn't exist, that white supremacy doesn't exist,
White supremacy, that's the problem. This is a hoax. Just like the Russia hoax. It's a conspiracy theory used to divide the country and keep a hold on power. That's exactly what's going on.
that police racial profiling doesn't exist, that Black Lives Matter is a hate group, while you say nothing about the KKK, Aryan Nation, or Boogaloo Boys, or you've witnessed this and secretly hope it will just go away. Then you are no better than the racists who will ultimately destroy this country. Next week, Monday, we will continue on this journey as we walk through the doors of history. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Click the notification bell so you'll be notified when we upload new videos. Find The Awakening Frequency on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. Research is key. Always do your own research and never just listen to what people tell you. We are the awakening frequency. Out of the millions of potential subscribers, we just want to reach one so each one can teach one. Peace.